Hey guys, if you've been enjoying Esports Boom, please do us a favor, rate us on iTunes, 5 stars, or write a review. We would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome to a new episode of Esports Boom, your weekly esports business wrap-up podcast. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Anton Ferraro. Anton, how are you doing?
Doing very good. I think that, the LCS got jealous of all the coverage we've been giving to the OWL and decided to be like a much bigger deal this week.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a Thursday where we're supposed to record on Wednesday, and so much news came out today that we probably made a correct choice by waiting.
Yeah, definitely. So let's dive right into it. We're going to give a quick overview of everything that has happened so far with the LCS franchising, and then we're going to go through each story one by one quickly. So the NA LCS for 2018 has 3 new teams. Those 3 new teams as of right now, and these are all rumors, are the Cavaliers, the Warriors, and Optic Gaming. Some of the teams that were already in the LCS are staying. The teams that are staying and have rumored to have been approved are TSM, Cloud9, Team Liquid, FlyQuest, CLG, and Echo Fox. And the teams that have been removed from the LCS or did not pass the application process are Dignitas, Immortals, Phoenix One, and Envy. And if you've been keeping track, the current number is that there are 9 teams that have been accepted into the NA LCS, and there's one more team that will be announced will probably leak in the next week.
So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the teams and we're going to say what we think about it. Like, why did they get accepted? Why didn't they? What does this mean for the road that the NALCS is going for? So the first 2 teams actually, because they were reported at the same time, are Phoenix One and Team Envy. Important to note is that Phoenix One, as far as I know, does not have the same level of investment that Team Envy has.
But they are also reportedly managing the Crunkies Overwatch team, which is the Gladiators. So it might be an Overwatch conflict.
That is indeed true. I think we'll get later to why, with another team, to why that might be a really big issue. But Team Envy was a surprise, not a shock.
I was surprised at Envious. I mean, I think you heard me clucking my tongue a little bit earlier about Envy, and I feel that Envy has a strong brand. They have had, I think, only 1 year in the NALCS. I think they did okay. They had the financing, and I honestly feel that out of the 4 teams that were denied from the LCS, Envy, in my opinion, Envy, I guess, and Immortals are in one tier, and then Phoenix One and Dignitas are in another tier. But Envy, I was kind of personally hurt by. I really love the team.
Oh, yes, it's a great team. I think probably is that their brand, when it comes to League of Legends, they're relatively new, so they have a huge brand in general. But I think what the NALCS is also looking for is brands that are particularly strong in League.
No, I agree with that. I think what there wasn't enough forward-thinking thought is that you accepted Optic, but you kicked out Envy. And when you build a sports league, what you want rivalries. You want the Boston Red Sox versus the New York Yankees. You want the New England Patriots versus the Giants. And one of the biggest rivalries in esports is the rivalry between Optic Gaming and Envious, and it spans across multiple games. And to not have that rivalry exist in LCS, I think that was a big loss.
Both Envy and Optic will be the 2 Texan spots in the Overwatch League. So that's a really big plus for the Overwatch League, because if you're an Envy fan, there are tons of Envy fans. And even if you're an Optic fan that doesn't watch Overwatch, you might consider watching just for that big rivalry game.
Absolutely. So what do you think about the Immortals situation?
So the Immortals, that's the biggest shock in my opinion. For people who don't follow the NALCS, Immortals actually made it into Worlds, which is the biggest world championship for League of Legends. They weren't the strongest team because North America is notoriously not as good as well, Korean teams primarily.
North America at Worlds for LCS is like Team USA at the World Cup. You always cheer for them, but they tend to disappoint you.
Yeah. Although I would like to argue that's from 2018 that might be completely different when we have franchising.
Yeah.
Immortals is the biggest shock because they have an extremely strong brand. People have been saying that they've been hiring some credible hires. They hired some former traditional sports people that worked in the NHL, people that worked in the NFL, people that worked for agencies. So they have a team that knows business. They are as good financially as a lot of other teams, although one of the reasons that Jacob Wolf quoted as to why Immortals did not make it was because of their finances, that their last 2 years they operated on a loss, or a big enough loss that it didn't make sense for them to be in the NA LCS from Riot's perspective. But their brand is undeniable, and if you're a current NA LCS fan, not even an Immortals fan, you're going to miss this team tremendously.
No, I think that they were a very strong brand, and it's unfortunate to see them go. If I had to put my speculation hat on, I'm going to say that there were 3 strikes against the Immortals. One was the reason that Jacob Wolf reported. And if we read into that a little bit, if you're operating at a huge financial loss, what you're doing is you're also increasing the prices of the ecosystem. And what you're seeing is players requesting higher and higher salaries. The cost to operate in the LCS is skyrocketing. And if there's organizations who don't care about profits, it makes it harder for everybody else. And that includes Riot. So you kind of want to end the speculative bubble, and you want to try and steer the industry in a direction where it's a profitable one. So you try and guide teams in that direction as much as possible. That's one. I think 2 is that they were in the Overwatch League, and I think some teams have been able to successfully negotiate franchising for both leagues. I think Optic Gaming is one of those. But for other ones like Envious and Immortals, that was one of their strikes that worked against them in terms of getting into the NA LCS. And if I had to guess, the third one is that they are operating, their biggest partner is AEG, who's a venue operator. And unlike the OWL, the NALCS has a studio. Well, no, they both of them have a studio, but the NALCS hasn't really branched out into something like regions.
It won't be. At least there are no current plans.
Right. And if all of a sudden, you have somebody who is the biggest operator of LA venues trying to come in at an angle that's totally unique to them and totally unattainable by the other teams, that's an unfair advantage for the NALCS ecosystem. You don't want the biggest operator of LA venues involved in a situation where, I don't even know how to paraphrase that. How would you describe what I'm trying to say?
Well, one thing I think that has partly to do with what you were doing, but not completely, is the fact that both Phoenix One, as you were saying, there are rumors that they're going to run the one of the LA franchises, and then the second LA franchise is bought by Immortals. So that is not good for the NALCS, or they consider it to be not a conflict of interest, but they consider it to be a direct competition, because if you're going to put your resources behind the Overwatch League at the time where maybe your team is playing in the NALCS at the same time, what are you gonna scream out the most? What are you gonna ask your fans to watch? And it becomes kind of a conflict of interest, specifically when you're talking about region-based, when you're talking about LA team versus an LA-based operation that's the NALCS.
Right. So, okay, I guess if we had to paraphrase it, if part of the Riot business model is to operate live events themselves, an operator who comes in and will be petitioning to run their own events is a conflict. And Riot has previously chosen to keep everything in-house themselves when they divested of white label operators like MLG, ESL to a large degree, the IGN Pro League went back in the day. So I think that is where the business model of the Immortals came into conflict with the NA LCS franchising model.
So Immortals is the biggest shock, at least from teams that were declined.
Yes.
But then there are 2 teams that were a big shock from a acceptance position. And those are the Golden State Warriors and the Cavs. Both NBA franchises, actually. We talked about the Golden State Warriors in our last podcast. But
I believe they already have some, one of their managers has an ownership stake in Team Liquid. Is that correct?
Yes, you're completely right. They have a part ownership in Axiomatic, if I'm correct, which owns a large part of Team Liquid.
Which owns a controlling stake in Team Liquid.
Yes. This week was announced that the Cavs, well, today actually, that the Cavs now have a franchise in the NA LCS. And they're going to hire Nate Shot, a Call of Duty legend, a streamer personality, to run their managerial ops, which is pretty surprising. I wonder, Anton, with your background in Call of Duty, I'm sure you're familiar with Nate Shot. Like, what are your thoughts on this?
So I love Matt. Matt has been around the block in esports many times. You know, he's very well versed in the industry. He's gone through multiple different contract negotiations and different situations, and he has survived, which is definitely admirable, and he has thrived. He has a very strong brand. He has he has millions of followers on Twitter and on YouTube. He was part of Optic Gaming. He was a part owner of Optic Gaming, and then divested himself of it and started his own brand, which was 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves had marginal success, but it was something that he has experience in being part of a team, being a part owner of a team, and trying to start up his own team, which is valuable. He brings a certain amount of clout with his social following, and I think he's authentic to the space. The other thing that's interesting is with Optic Gaming now in the NA LCS, the Cavaliers, with the addition of Nadeshot, set themselves up to be the rivalry against Optic Gaming. It's two new teams, and the management and the social personalities behind it are aware of each other and have storylines. So I think that's valuable.
It's very valuable. I mean, the big elephant in the room is he has no league experience, but I'm sure that they're going to hire some business people, some managerial staff that knows the LCS well, that has experience, maybe a coach that can help him with the actual staffing. Managerial ops, obviously, it's a random title because I don't think he's going to be the day-to-day League of Legends person. I think he's going to be more of a strategic guy that looks at the brand of the team. Arguably, is going to use his clout, like you said, to drive traffic. And I'm pretty sure that a hire like Nate Shot shows that the Cavs have bigger plans than just
That was going to be my follow-up question. With these new teams like the Warriors, the Cavs, do you anticipate them expanding into other games?
I don't know about the Warriors. The Cavs... So the Cavs, their owner already has some hands in esports indirectly. So Courtside Ventures, which is a VC firm which the owner of the Cavs is a large investor in, is an investor in Wavedash, which is an esports specific game that's coming out pretty soon. It looks a lot like Super Smash, and then also. Courtside Ventures actually looked into investing in, I think, Team Liquid and another team, but said that they wouldn't do it. So I know Deepan Parikh, he's a partner at Courtside Ventures. I know him well, and I know that there aren't a lot of people who have the finger on the pulse when it comes to anything sports tech, which I consider esports to be part of because it's digital native. So they know esports, and I'm pretty sure that they have bigger plans than just League.
No, I mean, it seems interesting. Okay, they've diversified their portfolio into owning a team in the NA LCS, which is considered right now the best ROI. I mean, comparatively, we'll see how the OWL does, but the NA LCS seems like a safer bet. And they've invested into a game. The Wavedash guys are brilliant. They have tons of experience building games. They know their community. And the FGC is a great niche that, I don't think has been tapped into that well from the perspective of games as a service. The only games as a service model that I feel is successful right now is probably Injustice. Everything else has had marginal results. But yeah, and then let's talk about the third edition, Optic Gaming. What do you think about that one?
I think it's great.
Yeah, I think Optic Gaming somehow came out, Slasher was tweeting about this earlier, on top of everything. They are in the OWL, they are in the NA LCS, They have a CS:GO team. They have a Dota team. And what is the fifth game that I'm missing right now? There was the top 5 esports games. It'll come to us. I think COD maybe, but it was another game. But it's, Optic Gaming did really well for themselves.
Hector and his team are the best out there when it comes to building a brand. They have managed to get the kind of 15 to 20, 25-year-old market really well, particularly through their YouTube videos. Each and every one of their players is a brand themselves. Very similar to if you look at like the YouTube houses that a lot of these YouTube content creators live in. They've basically recreated that for esports.
Well, I don't think they recreated it. I think they created that.
Yes, you can argue that. But they are... So each and every person has a storyline. They're intermingle with players from other teams. All of a sudden, they're buddies. So it gets you more into the stories of the players and the Optic as a whole. A Green Wall fan, which is the nickname for Optic, if you're a Green Wall fan for Dota or for Call of Duty, when they're playing in the international, you're going to root and you're going to watch it just because that brand is so strong. Specifically, if you're planning on building an Overwatch League brand, which you have to rebrand yourself, so you can't use the Optic Green Wall brand, I think it's from all of the teams, it's going to be the easiest for Optic because they already have such a massive fan base. But if you're going into the NA LCS and you can use your existing brand to leverage that and gain new fans, out of all the 3 new entrants, I think the biggest force to be reckoned with is Optic.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if the NALCS makes Optic rebrand for it, which would be, unfortunate from a Greenwall fan perspective, but understandable from Riot's. But yeah, no, Hector did an incredible job. I think the other thing that he should be commended for is if you look at the career of an esports athlete, a lot of times these guys will play for their teams and then their teams will kind of cut them loose after their performance goes down. Hector has kind of kept a lot of his guys on board at the gaming house and pivoted them or evolved them into just pure YouTube creators. So where other esports teams have basically just, severed ties with players, Hector's players have stayed as part of the Optic brand and they've become these gathering points for fans that, Optic isn't losing fans, it's continually gaining fans.
And just to go on that, so if you're a traditional sports team, even if you're an esports team, particularly a traditional sports team, the most important thing for you when investing in esports, besides the obviously ROI based on franchising, is the creation of content. Mm-hmm. These teams, all these traditional sports teams, they are eager to create content. They have content teams that are doing nothing a couple days a week when the team isn't playing, when the team isn't doing anything that's necessary, but they want to create more content.
So here's the thing that I think is going to be a pain point for these traditional teams. They're going to come into these situations with the perspective and the experience of creating content for the NBA. And I think that the model for esports is totally different, and the expectations of esports fans in terms of how esports pro athletes communicate with them is different than traditional athletes.
Agreed, but I do think there is a place for the storytelling aspect, meaning knowing a little bit more. I think Optic Gaming is an exception because of the person-to-person style of vlogging that they're doing, where you literally see you see when they eat, you see when they talk with their friends, you see when they use the bathroom. So that's very, very personal. But if you're taking a Immortals approach, which is more professional-esque looking, then they can really value the team aspect or value a professional production when it comes to telling of the stories, because a lot of these players have very interesting stories. The type of content creation, the team house visits, the look at how we practice has been done too much, and this type of in-depth storytelling, visiting the parents, going to interview them and ask them how they experience the situation and how they have helped their kid become this humongous superstar. There isn't a lot of that, and I think fans might appreciate that.
All right, so some fair points there, and I think that the other thing that we want to talk about are the teams that got to stay in the LCS. So those teams are Cloud9, Team Solo Mid, CLG, FlyQuest, and who's the team that I'm missing right now?
Team TSM, Cloud9, Team Liquid, CLG, and FlyQuest.
Yes.
That's 5.
Yep, and I believe those are the ones that got to stay in. So which one of those to you was most surprising, and which one of them was... what do you think about all of them?
So let's just go through the list. So I think TSM and Cloud9, and possibly Team Liquid as well, were no-brainers for me.
We missed Echo Fox.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But I think TSM, Cloud9, Team Liquid are no-brainers. They are these humongous brands. They're doing financially really well. Even TSM, which until now has not gotten officially announced that they have an investor or anything, they were so sure that they would get in the league. They said, we're not even going to look for an investor until we get into the league, because our valuation obviously then is a lot higher. CLG is kind of it's not a surprise, but I think if they wouldn't have gotten the Madison Square Garden deal, they wouldn't have gotten in.
That's what Jacob said. Madison Square Garden was basically, their knight in shining armor in the ninth hour.
Yeah, particularly with the fact that they have MSG hired, what's his name again?
Nick Allen.
Nick Allen, who used to work at Riot. So I think that definitely helped create a barrier of trust. And then finally, FlyQuest. It's not surprising because they have such a strong traditional kind of venture and sports team behind them. The Edens family and their group, obviously, with the Milwaukee Bucks and their other venture capital investments.
Team Fortress Fortress Investments. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have been proven. They have showed dedication. It could have been them. It could have been Team Dignitas. Team Dignitas, fortunately, is out. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Team Dignitas and not FlyQuest, but I'm not surprised the fact that it's FlyQuest and not Team Dignitas.
Yeah, I think FlyQuest has done a really great job developing their brand over the past, they've been in there for a year now, I think.
Yeah, and they have a Rocket League team.
Yeah, and I feel like the Dignitas has been in there for, pretty much since the inception, but their returns... I haven't seen that many Dignitas fans. They kind of cycled out Cutie Pie, they cycled out Scara, and those were the big personalities that you associated with the brand. And since then, I've had a really hard time finding somebody to follow from their roster.
Well, Dignitas has the backing, but they do not have the brand.
Yeah. No, definitely. And then I think the other big news was that Echo Fox successfully defended their spot. And today was announced that they got a strategic investment from the Yankees.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
So, first I'll talk about the fact that with the league spot, Echo Fox, Jace Hall, and obviously Rick Fox have a very specific vision when it comes to their team. They're looking at the esports team as a tool to grow a big esports business surrounding it. They want to be there on all aspects. And Vision Esports is kind of their project, together with I don't know.
Twin Galaxies, I believe, is one, and then they have Vision Entertainment, I think, is their second one.
Yeah, so basically they're looking at it as Echo Fox is our team. That's going to be our baby, our anchor. Then surrounding that, we have Twin Galaxies, which is a tournament organizer. They also do records,
record keeping.
But
yeah.
they're running the H1Z1 Pro League. So they are a tournament organizer now as well. And then they have Vision Entertainment, which really is focused on creating scripted and non-scripted content surrounding their personalities of Echo Fox and surrounding arguably the H1Z1 Pro League and the stuff that Twin Galaxies is doing. So they really want to get revenue from all sources. So I think, Riot... It's surprising that they got. It's not surprising that they kept in because they have such a good staff and a long-term vision. It's a bit surprising because I think Riot wants to be pretty defensive when it comes to the content surrounding the NA LCS. I think they want to own as much of it as possible, particularly because they have said before that they're going to offer some kind of premium viewing experience, arguably where you get this type of content. And the fact that now they have a team with arguably the strongest content strategy long term is pretty surprising.
Yeah, so I think, if we're gonna look at conspiracy theories and just explore that angle, I believe that TSM, Cloud9, Liquid, and CLG are all part of the PEA, which is the Professional Esports Association. And I know that Echo Fox is not, or last I heard they weren't. And I think from Riot's perspective is, they don't want to only accept teams in the PEA because at that point they're negotiating against a totally united front. So by putting in a partner who, accepting a team that is not part of the organization helps Riot to maintain their, leverage in negotiations. It doesn't totally swing it in the favor of the teams.
Yeah, that's true. I'm just happy, I think, for the future of the NA LCS that Echo Fox is in there. I just want to end up this kind of big wrap-up that we've been doing by posing you a question. So I posted a question on Twitter this week. If we theorize and we say that the NA LCS and the Overwatch League are a success, and the esports teams and traditional sports teams in those two leagues get a good chunk of ROI, is it too late for future esports teams that aren't in one of those two leagues to become serious contenders and become the future TSMs and the future Cloud9s?
Sure. I'm going to answer that with a very direct yes. For one, the NALCS, I believe, has gone on record saying that next year they're going to expand the NALCS to 12 teams. So there's 2 more guaranteed slots that are going to be, or 2 more promised slots that are going to be in the NALCS next year. Those are, goals for other teams to aspire to. I think the OWL is interested in expanding the size of their league.
They're very interested.
Yeah, and if there's an ROI which is from the OWL, then yeah, there's room over there as well. And I think that there are other publishers who, if they look at the model of the OWL and the NALCS, who can expand their video games into those types of models. I think Clash Royale is definitely a huge potential. We haven't seen a huge esports success in mobile. I think Rainbow Six has quietly been growing in the background, much to the surprise of many people. I think Counter-Strike, Paladins, Dota 2, they're all opportunities. Those are much less regulated, but it's something more of like the European Premier League.
Yeah, but I think you're gonna get it. I think in the future, when you get new franchised leagues, you're going to get to a point, let's say the buy-in will be $1 million. It won't be $10 million. It's going to be chump change for a successful NALCS franchise holder or successful Overwatch League franchise holder. And it's going to be the same type of money. It's going to be a ridiculous amount of money for upcoming esports teams.
So what you're saying is that the price to build a successful esports team is going to grow from this point on.
It's going to grow tremendously.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I commend these people for jumping in early and being the first movers.
And you can be a great Call of Duty team, but the moment they start franchising, when the real money comes in and you need to pay to get in,
yeah,
it's Optic obviously, but then the other teams are going to say, well, we'll just buy a team that doesn't have the money to get in anyways.
No, I mean, if you look at the top Call of Duty teams, a lot of them are already part of larger organizations. I believe Splice has a Call of Duty team, so it's kind of like, they're the Bruins. The other professional sports teams have already been making inroads into other titles. But yeah, so I think that's interesting. And, it's a nice little segue into our next topic. I think 2 more esports teams were announced with heavy financial backing this week. And I know, Mo, you have some strong thoughts about one of them?
Yes. So TNL Media had the exclusive story that this team called Underworld raised, they said $10 million. They said it's a multi-million-dollar investment, but they think it's $10 million from the Kaplan, who's a co-owner of the Grizzlies, and Dr. Zahalski, who apparently is a winner or a current contender in Survivor. So I never heard of Underworld before. And this is a weird hobby, but a hobby of mine is to follow like 3rd tier and 4th tier esports teams and to buy their jerseys just the same way as I do with soccer teams. So I built that collection up. So I do know of a lot of like random teams that only play in one title and I have their jersey somewhere. But apparently this team, if I'm correct, they have the 3rd best Gears of War team in South America or something like that. They're in a couple games. Gears is particularly their strongest. They're not a top contender in any way. And even if you would get 100% of the company for $10 million, it's ridiculous overvaluation. If I can just be honest, I think it hurts the industry. The fact that this was brokered by someone called Bill Yates of the Sports Advisory Group, I think it's ridiculously overpriced, and arguments have been made saying this is a brain buy. Well, if you're the fourth or third Gears of War team in South America, it isn't a brain buy. Like this, these aren't Optic Gaming that have built brands that millions of people follow. And with all due respect, I'm extremely happy for Underworld. I mean, I hope they do really well with the money. So this is not a dig at them specifically, but the fact that these type of teams get this type of money shows me that there's a lot of dumb money coming into esports.
Yeah, so while Mo was on his rant, I pulled up the Underworld Esports website. I think, and I want to examine the story from a couple of different angles. Underworld has a Gears of War team, a Vainglory team, a Brawlhalla team, and Call of Duty. At best, these are tier 2 titles, with maybe Call of Duty being a tier 1, and I don't know the success of their Call of Duty team. But I think that, I think it's almost like an ES Force situation, right? So ES Force is a Russian conglomerate that has ownership in teams like Navi, Virtus Pro, and I believe SK Gaming. And they came out with this giant announcement that we're gonna invest $100 million into esports. And I feel that this is kind of like the situation with the Grizzlies, where it's maybe they have the deal of right of first refusal up to $10 million, and they're getting a much smaller portion of the actual money. I find it hard to believe that there's a no strings attached $10 million check written out to these guys at Underworld. I don't know who they are. I don't know of their track record. I'm dubious of their teams, and I don't think that if you're a person who has $10 million to invest in esports, you're going to be, and with how much opportunity there is in the market right now, you're just going to give it away that easily.
Well, I doubt with all due respect to Underworld, I wouldn't even consider them a tier 3 team.
I mean, we've just never heard of them. So until we know who they are,
Well, I did some research, and I mean, in Gears, even if they're number 1 in Gears, even if they have a decent, because they don't have a top Call of Duty team, even if they have a decent Call of Duty team, even if they have the best Brawlhalla player, and they don't have a top 10 Vainglory team, because I know all the top 10 teams.
All right, let me pose the question to you then this way. Suppose you are the Grizzlies, and you've earmarked $10 million for investment into an esports team and developing an esports team. What would your strategy be?
I would either buy stake in a max a tier 3 team. So a tier 1 is probably you're not going to get for $10 million. Tier 2 you probably will be able to get. If not, tier 3 team. Tier 3 I would be hesitant to.
So what are those opportunities right now in the market?
What are those? I think you have to look at the European teams.
Okay, so somebody like God, who am I thinking of? Like Rockcat, are they still a team?
Ninjas in Pajamas, for instance, they just got an investment, but arguably before those type of teams, the teams that are in the EU LCS right now that are looking for investment, those are teams that have a proven track, that have a proven brand. This team doesn't have anything.
Right, so even if you look at somebody like Ninjas in Pajamas, the market's gotten to the point where Ninjas in Pajamas reportedly only sold a 15% stake for $10 million. Suppose that this was a full out buy by Grizzlies, and they own this team in entirety. Is it worth it then? And if they spend the next 3 years to build it up into something great?
It's not, because you can buy realistically. Let's say it's a full on buy for $10 million. I wouldn't give $1 million for this team. You can give it for I'm sure you can
build something from scratch.
You can build something from scratch with $10 million that is way better. You can buy all the top players in these teams, build your own brand for $10 million.
But then what if it's just their operating budget? What if the money is their budget to build something from scratch, and that's it? Like, they didn't really buy anything. I mean, that's what this deal feels like.
Well, then it's the question, like, would you rather buy a team that hasn't reached to the top in any relevant esports title, and the relevant esports title that they're playing in, they're at most a contender for a decent place. Would you rather buy a team that hasn't proven it can do any of those things, or use that $10 million, hire 2 or 3 people that have proven they can build, that are not working for any of the teams anymore, that have proven they can build these type of franchises, and just say, this is your budget for the next 5 years. We want you to build a great franchise.
So that feels to me like the Underworld deal.
Okay, I don't think they have proven anything.
No, but we'll see. I mean, I don't know. It just, they feel to me like Sliver TV. We're just beating up on them, and then next week, they're going to come out with a headline where...
Like I said, I've been beating on them now. I'm extremely happy for Underworld, and I really hope that they use this money to build an incredible franchise, and I hope I've been proving wrong. I'm just extremely annoyed, to say the least, at the fact that these type of teams, like the teams that are in this type of realm, that don't have a big fan base, that are not contenders to win any relevant esports titles, are getting this type of money.
Yeah. No, it's definitely the market has reached a fever pitch.
Yeah.
And I think the other team that was announced this week is one of the founders of StubHub, is going to build a Las Vegas-based esports team. Kind of a different announcement. He basically just said that he's going to build something from scratch. Great to have more investors in the space. Probably a better headline than what we saw with Underworld.
They signed a pretty good PUBG team, I think.
Yeah, PUBG is a good place to be in as well.
It's great, especially if you're looking to build something from scratch. You can
Totally.
take risks. Players' salaries obviously have gone up a lot in PUBG, but they're still nothing compared to major esports titles.
Yep.
So it's a great risk you can take. And then another story that kind of piqued our interest. We haven't really gotten into any legal stories. But this story, because these are 2 really big brands, one in traditional sports and one in esports, it was worthwhile to talk about it. So Adidas challenged E-League's trademark. So it basically relates to the fact that E-League's E logo, there are 3 stripes which basically make an E. And Adidas has been notoriously protective, to say the least, of their 3-stripe logo. That's if you come close to a 3-stripe logo, you can get a trademark challenge. So their first count alleges that there's similarity between 2 logos. There are about 3 broken lines, and their respective goods and services overlap or are closely related. Traditional sports and esports. Also, Adidas mentioned in their trademark file that they're a sponsor of the FIFA Interactive World Cup. So therefore, they are in esports. And the second count, it is content that the similarity between the 2 brands will dilute the strength of Adidas' logo as a hallmark of authentic Adidas goods. So in theory, you can buy a E-League brand, jersey with the E-League logo on it, and that will lower the brand value of Adidas because it looks a lot like what Adidas would bring in.
Yeah, I think that the only thing that this was similar to, not the only thing, but the thing that this was most similar to was the MLB trademark infringement lawsuit against, or claim against, I don't think it ever went to a lawsuit against the OWL, because their logos are very similar. I know the MLB has been protective of their logo. I don't remember how that panned out, but I feel like the current OWL logo doesn't feel like it was changed that much. I think you have a lawyer at Adidas who's paid to do his job, and from his perspective, it's let's be safe than sorry. I think the logo's from my non-legal perspective and minimalist design sense, I feel like the 2 logos are very different.
I'm not a law expert. I took 3 sports law classes for my master's, and the way you're looking at this from a design perspective. That's completely not the way a lawyer looks at this.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, it's, I don't know. I feel like Turner is going to be big enough to push it away.
I think this is just a show of muscle from Adidas. They have to say that if it's more of a fact that if they don't say anything, then they're afraid of a rolling effect. They just have to flex their muscle. E-League might change their logo a little bit, or they might not even at all. And it just means that the fact that if there's another brand that even wants to think about Three Stripes, they will remember this story, and they'll be like, we want to be as far away from this as possible.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's fair. And then the last one story that I think we wanted to talk about, this is also up your alley. Deezer became Fnatic's exclusive music streaming partner.
Yeah.
So why did you think this was interesting?
Because this is, as far as I know, a first in esports.
So yeah, I think Deezer is interesting. I think that the other provider in this space that's similar but a little bit different is Monster Cat. Monster Cat has provided most of their catalog to Twitch streamers and to Mixer, and I know that a lot of esports tournaments utilize their catalog for productions, but this is the first time that I've seen a service come in exclusively for a team. I think the other interesting story with this is that there was an arcade skin Sona. I think, what was it? It was a Sona skin for League of Legends. Mm-hmm. But depending on, I think, what is it? Like in the game of League of Legends, you could pick what music was played for every player if you had that skin.
That's interesting.
So I think that, we've seen a couple of times that, music is trying to figure out how to expand into the space. But again, this is the first time that we've seen a label,
a streaming service,
a streaming service, Deezer, partner up with a team.
Yeah, it's surprising. Esports and music, there's a lot of overlap. EDM music is always used in esports a lot, and that's good. We see too many times we see a DJ actually intro an esports tournament. We should stop that. But there's a lot of opportunity for esports and music, particularly when it comes to partnerships. Getting Fnatic fans to go to, let's say, Deezer. As we see in generally with trends towards esports, it's the challenger brands that are willing to take these type of risks. So it's not an Apple Music, Spotify, or Tidal. It's Deezer that's doing this. And it's surprising. The way how they activate it will be key.
Yes.
Will it just be official streaming partner of Fnatic, or will each Fnatic player have their own playlist on Deezer that relates to what they talk about in their stream?
And will the ROI even be significant enough to, expand this deal?
Yeah, well, I think this goes probably from Deezer's experimental budget.
Yeah.
They take risks with these type of things. I doubt it's a very big deal because it's not one of the big sponsorship categories. It's extra revenue for Fnatic, and Fnatic proves, yet again that they're incredibly good at getting new type of sponsorships in the deal and thinking ahead. The fact that their Fnatic bunker, which they get, they host all these events. They are planning on building a co-working space for content creators and companies in the gaming and esports field. So this is right up their alley. It's tech and sports and in esports.
Yeah, Fnatic has to make up for not making into the OWL.
Absolutely.
It's been a little rough for them. But then the other one I think that's interesting to comment from the music angle is Twitch had a really huge push into music about a year ago, and I've seen a little bit I've seen fewer announcements in the past 6 months than I did 18 months ago. So if I had to read into that, they went in there, they experimented with it, and then they decided that they wanted to focus their energies elsewhere. I've seen T-Pain, he's kind of become a streamer, and, that's a great way for him to activate with his audience. But I don't remember, as much promotion for a music festival like Ultra as there was a year or two ago on Twitch.
Yeah, well, too often a lot of these brands, and kudos to Twitch for trying it, they think they can take esports fans like music, therefore we can take this concert, we can stream it on Twitch, and it'll get, great viewership because they like music. Where a T-Pain approach is a lot more successful because T-Pain is a great musician, but he gets gaming.
Yeah, and he's an entertaining streamer.
He's very entertaining, so he just happens to be an entertaining streamer. He can then obviously play his own music in the background. He can ask people to buy his songs or do type of things. He can sell sponsorship deals for his stream, and that's a way to make revenue. So I think a better approach for Twitch, and they probably sure have tried this, is to go to major labels and to tell them, hey, let's sign partnership deals. Which one of your streamers, which one of your singers, that's building a buzz, loves gaming and games 2 hours a day anyways. Why not put them on Twitch twice a week, and they can gain a massive following?
Yeah, I mean, I think that just music labels are defending whatever territory they have left, and it's probably making negotiations with them a little bit harder. By the way, did you see that T-Pain Connect 4 video?
No.
There was a great one. So T-Pain was live streaming. There was another major, I think, like Minecraft streamer that was on at the same time, and his fan base went into T-Pain's chat room and started talking crap to T-Pain, and then T-Pain's fans went into the Minecraft streamers chat room and started talking crap. And this was not either T-Pain or the streamer talking crap to each other. It's just the fan base wanted them to fight, and they played like a Connect 4 game. It was honestly one of the most hilarious videos I've seen like in the past month or two.
Well, yeah, and I think underrated.
And it was authentic.
Yeah, underrated. It only works when these streamers are actually authentic. It doesn't work if people are on Twitch. Let's go on Twitch and stream, and I don't really know games, and I don't get it. I don't want to put in 50 hours into Overwatch before I stream, because T-Pain just likes Overwatch, so he'll stream Overwatch.
Yeah.
And plus it helps for me personally that he's one of my favorite artists. So the fact that I can see this type of artist go and proudly proclaim that he's a gamer and he loves esports is only going to, there's only going to be more of that in the future.
Definitely. So I think this was a pretty good episode. Mo, I think that, and it covers most of the topics I wanted to hit on. Is there anything else you want to?
No, but as always, we said it last time, but please leave a review or rate us on iTunes. It really helps a lot. I've heard the good news. Starting next week, we'll be on Google Play.
Woo!
You can find us on Stitcher. You can find us on Blog Talk Radio. And where can people follow you on Twitter, Anton?
You guys can find me on Twitter at Joker Can't Spell. And Mo, where can people find you?
You can find me on MREISENMANN, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.